All right, today we're doing lesson 2, which is finding arc measures. So when we talk specifically about a circle, we're going to be looking at how to find the angle measures of an arc of a circle. So at the top of our notes today, a central angle of a circle is the angle that is formed by two radii. Remember we talked about that's plural for radius, and has a vertex at the center. So when we look at our diagram below, our example here, our two radii we could call, first would be OA, and then also OB, right? So from the center to the circle, OA, from the center to the circle, OB. So the circular arc is the arc on the outside of the circle. We're used to finding angles, this central angle inside here. The circular arc is on the outside, okay? So we know that the measure of angle, or the measure of arc, AB, is 59 degrees. Also, the measure of angle AOB, which we've talked about before, right? That inside angle is equal to 59 degrees. So if we know they're both the same, then we know that the measure of an arc is equal to the measure of the central angle, right? So those two things are interchangeable. If you know the center angle, the central angle, then you can also find the measure of the arc on the outside as well, right? Just like we did here. Our central angle is 59, the arc also 59. So here's how we measure arcs. If a central angle is less than 180 degrees, then the points on the circle that lie in the interior of the angle form a minor arc. Those are named using 2 points, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to start here at AB, and we're going to kind of work our way around. So our first arc we would call arc AB, and we just put that little arc symbol over the top. And we're just going to work our way around the circle. Another arc that is less than 180 degrees would be arc BD. Next to that, we would have DE, arc DE. And the last arc would be arc EA. So that is the name of the arc. Then we can also find the measure of our minor arcs, right? So let's start with the same one. Now, here's what I would do first. I would go look at my circle and go ahead and name the ones I don't know, right? So here we have a straight line, right? So if this is 130 degrees, we could subtract from 180. So we know the remainder here is going to be 50. Okay, and then I know the total of a circle is 360, so I could take 360 and subtract 40, 50, and 130, and you're going to be left with 140. So once you have the degree of all those, then we can name each arc, right? So the measure of arc E, we started with AB. So the measure of arc AB is equal to 40 degrees. The measure of arc DE is equal to 140. The measure of arc EA is equal to 130. And the measure, I messed up again. I'm losing my mind today, y'all. That was DE. So the measure of arc DE was 130. Just getting ahead of myself. And then the measure of arc EA, our last one, is equal to 50. Okay. So minor arcs, less than 180 degrees. Secondly, if a central angle is equal to 180 degrees, then the points on the circle that lie in the interior angle form a semicircle, right? We know a semicircle is half a circle, which would be 180 degrees, and is named using 3 points. So I have 2 semicircles here, right? The first we would call A, B, D. That would give us our first semicircle. So we're going to say A, B, D is our first semicircle. The other, D, E, A, or you could even call it A, E, D. Does not matter. Now, measure of these 2 semicircles should be easy because a semicircle is always equal to 180 degrees. So both the measure of ABD and the measure of angle AED, or semicircle AED, are equal to 180. All right, lastly, if, excuse me, if a central angle is greater than 180, then the points on the circle that lie in the interior of the angle form a major arc. I know I'm saying a lot of words there. Basically, if it's bigger than 180, it's a major arc. If it's less than, it's a minor arc, right? Also named using 3 points. So the major arc here that would be greater than 180 would be all 3 of these together, right? Which we remember that inside one was equal to 50. So again, we name it with 3 points. So we would say B, E, D. You could call it BAD, doesn't matter as long as you use 3 points. So BED is our major arc. And then the measure we find by adding 40 plus 50 plus 130. So the measure of arc BED is equal to 220 degrees. Okay, so we're going to go through here on page 2, and we're just going to look at how to find some of the missing, first we'll name them, and then we'll find some of the missing angles and go from there, okay? All right, so on the first set of examples, it says find the measure of each arc and name the arc given, okay? So first, what I would probably do is I would just start here, and I would just go ahead and find these missing pieces, right? So we know that this is a straight line, so all of these together should be equal to 180 degrees. So I'm going to start with 180, and I'm going to subtract 40, and I'm going to subtract 61 to find the missing part, which would leave us with 79. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that up at the top where UV is. Okay, and then from there, we're just going to subtract for 180 because these two together, right, should form a straight line, 79 and right next to it. So 180 minus 79 should give us 101. And then again, these two are going to form a straight line equaling 180 degrees. So that's also going to be equal to 79. Now, just so they're all inside, I am going to bring these down 40 and 61. So from here, it should be pretty easy for us to go ahead and identify each of the arcs, what type they are, and then what their degree measure is. So the first one asks us to find arc VX. So VX is from here to here. So all you have to do are add those two together, 40 plus 61, and then the measure of VX is going to be equal to 101. And then it's less than 180, so we would say this is a minor arc. Okay, on XY, right, this one's pretty simple because it's already given to us. From here to here, we know is 79 degrees. So the measure of arc XY is 79. Also less than 180, so it has to be minor. Now, here's the hint always that'll tell you if it's minor before, because there's only 2 instead of 3, right? It's only named with 2 points instead of 3. So looking on here, we have one more that's a minor arc. So let's go ahead and do that one because we know it only has 2 points. So from V to U is already identified for us, also 79 degrees. So the measure of VU is 79 degrees. Okay, so let's go back to example 3. We'll look at the others. The other ones ask us for UVX. So we're going to go U to V to X, right? Which we know if we go UVX, this gives us a semicircle. And a semicircle is always equal to 180 degrees. Okay, example 4, we're going WVY, so W to V all the way to Y. So we need to add these together. We're going to add 40 plus 79 plus 101. We should get 220. So the measure of arc WVY is 220, which is greater than 180, so this would be a major arc. Okay, last one, WYU, W to Y to U. So same things, we're adding 61 plus 79 plus 101. Measure of WYU should give us 241, which is also a major arc. Okay, so fairly straightforward on this, right? We're just really adding or subtracting with some of these degree measures. Okay? All right, last part. It says find the measure of each arc in the pie chart. Now, notice that everything in your pie chart has been given to you using a percentage. Now, just as a reminder, when we do a whole circle, it's 360 degrees all around your circle. So we can use, if we want to find the degree measure, we can take whatever percent this is of what it's asking us for, which is that percent of 360 to find the measure of each arc. Okay, so let's do the first one. I think you guys will kind of get it. Now, just as a reminder, we can't actually multiply by a percent, so you do have to change each percent into a decimal. And just from like 6th grade with Miss Moreland's class, some of you might remember Dr. Pepper. So we're going from percent to a decimal. We move it 2 times to the left. Okay, so our first arc is AB. So we look at that percent. 8% as a decimal is 0.08. And all we're going to do is multiply that by 360. So in your calculator, you're going to type 0.08 times 360, and you should get 28.8%. All right, same idea all the way through this. Now, some of them might have a little extra work. For example, CE. If I go from C to E, that wants me to find athletes and others. So the first thing I might do is take 23 and add 17 to that, which is 40%. Right, so 40% as a decimal would be 0.40, and then I multiply that by the total, which is 360. So again, in our calculator, 0.4 times 360, we should get 144%. Okay, same exact thing with the next 2 examples. Example 3 says ACD, so we go from A to C, stop at D. So we're including all 3 of these sections, which would be 8%, 30%, and 23%. So we're going to add 8 plus 30 plus 23, which brings our total percent to 61. So we're going to write 61 as a decimal, multiply that by 360, the total of a circle, and we're going to get 219.6 degrees. Okay, lastly, CDA, start at C, go to D, end at A. We're looking at those three together. So 23 plus 17 plus 22 gives us a total of 62%. Right, so just like all the others, we take 62 as a decimal, times 360, and that gives us a total of 223.2. Okay, you guys are practicing just a few of these today. You're going to be on page 524, looking at numbers 1 through 6, and then 11, 13, and 22.